Hey guys, my name's Mary Francis, I hope you already know that. But today I'm going to be giving a presentation on the role of technological surveillance in young adult dystopias and how it has psychological effects on different characters within the novels that we've read so far. While I'm presenting, I would love for y'all to tweet at me. My handle is mfjohnson24. Shout, give me some questions, give me some feedback, whatever you'd like to do. To start, I'm going to discuss the concept of horror films versus dystopias. And I'm going to refer back to what we did in our first blog post, how we define our own dystopia. And I'd like to start by saying in 11th grade, I wrote a research paper on how horror films reflect cultural anxieties of a particular time period. But today, I'm discussing why dystopias reflect cultural anxieties of what we fear might happen in the future. And while the Cambridge Companion to Utopian Literature might disagree with me and might have a lot more to say about what a dystopia is, I'd argue that in the simplest form, a dystopia is what we fear is going to happen in the future. And in this modern day and age, we have all this technology and all of these bad things that keep happening in the world. There are certain people out there that have very particular fears about what's going to happen in the future. And part of my argument is that because of the large presence of technological surveillance in this era, many people fear that in the future, technological surveillance will continue to increase, and in turn, we'll lose our rights in other things. And I argue that this is why technological surveillance plays such a large role in YA dystopias. And to start, I'm going to discuss 3 different books. I'm going to talk about The Hunger Games, Match, my independent reading book, and Little Brother, 2 of which I hope you have read. And I'm going to discuss them in this order because I found that as I was looking at each of them, each book has a different level of technological surveillance, and The Hunger Games has the least amount of technological surveillance, and Little Brother has the most, with Match somewhere in between there. And because each of these books has a different level of surveillance, there's a unique effect on each of the main characters, Katniss, Cassia, and Marcus. So first, I'm going to talk about The Hunger Games and the unique effect the unique psychological effect that surveillance has on Katniss throughout the book. And although the main themes within The Hunger Games are power, social status, politics, and capitalism, an underlying yet powerful theme within the book is that of surveillance. And there are many instances throughout the novel in which Katniss is surveyed by the Capitol, and her mental reaction and her emotional reaction are seen through this through this surveillance that is being had on her. And the first thing that my mind went to when I was thinking about The Hunger Games and the surveillance in it was how Katniss and all of the game contestants are being watched for the whole duration of the games. And I thought it was really interesting as the form of surveillance in the games is unique because everyone in the games knows they're being watched the entire time in the games, while in most cases of technological surveillance, the victim, per se, doesn't know when they're being observed. They just know that they are being observed at some point in time. And for Katniss, this makes a huge difference in how she acts in the games, because knowing that she's being watched, it encourages her to act a certain way around PETA or perform a certain task in order to get help from sponsors. And her mentality towards the games changes completely knowing that she's being watched, because her mentality towards the games would have been very different if she didn't think she could get help from sponsors. And this is seen especially when she and PETA team up to work games together. So next, I'm going to talk about Matched, which was my independent reading book, and I'm going to give a little background on what the book is. The story takes place in what seems like a future America, and the government consists of what everyone calls the society. And the society decides everything for its people: who they love, who they marry, where they live, and when they die. And the main character is a girl named Cassia who gets matched with her best friend Xander, and throughout the novel she struggles with the fact that the society is making all of her decisions for her, because she realizes that she doesn't love Xander the way that the society feels that she should. And throughout the novel, Cassia begins to criticize the society more and more, and becomes more and more aware of how much the society is keeping track of her actions. And the surveillance in this novel is so excessive that the society is keeping track of what its people are dreaming. And Cassia knows that they're keeping track of her dreams, so there are multiple times within the novel that she's scared that her dreams are going to get her in trouble. And spoiler alert, they do get her in trouble. And you can see that her mental state changes once she starts to have negative thoughts towards the society, and she starts to live in fear, and her mental state is just kind of deteriorating for the duration of the novel. And since the story is told from a first-person point of view, you are really able to tell how much the surveillance affects her psychological state. And compared to the Hunger Games and Match, technological surveillance plays the largest role in Little Brother. It's one of the central themes within the novel, and its effects on the main character, Marcus, are made clear throughout the novel. And in the story, the United States tries to disguise their surveillance as a method of protecting its citizens. However, the reality of the situation in the story is that the surveillance incites fear and anger among its citizens, especially Marcus, which we see firsthand. And as we read through Little Brother, we're able to understand firsthand how the surveillance affects Marcus. And one quote that really stood out to me while I was reading was, he says to himself right after he discovers the bug in his computer, "My heart thudded in my ears. It was dark and quiet in the house, but it wasn't a comforting dark. There were eyes out there, eyes and ears, and they were watching me and serving me." So this is a first-hand account of how the technological surveillance is affecting him and affecting how he feels towards just the world in general. And mainly, however, Marcus is affected the most after he returns from his traumatizing experience on Treasure Island, because from there on out, he feels like he's being watched by the DHS because the DHS told him, "We're going to be watching you." And there's a clear transformation in who he is as a character, from being this carefree gamer who just goes around San Francisco and does what he wants, and he comes back and he transforms into this very cautious character who becomes very meticulous with his actions and just starts to live a more careful lifestyle. Altogether, throughout this book, the surveillance's influence on Marcus and Little Brother, it incites fear within him and cautiousness within him, but it mostly drives him to justice. And finally, I'd like to relate all of the technological surveillance back to the current level within the United States. And this is what I did most of my research on outside of reading these books, because I feel that these YA dystopias that we've been reading in class are closely related to what's happening in the US today. And I think that with the excessive use of technology, these types of things, like what happened in Little Brother, is totally possible. And essentially, my argument is that the excessive use of technological surveillance within many YA dystopias has a very large effect on the psychological state of its citizens. And within these novels, it either contributes to the control that the government exercises over its citizens, or it drives these people to rebel and anger.